critics. I've had for many years support and the sponsorship that you have had for many years of Brother Ira Rice. And there's no one who has done more in mission work than Brother Rice. And who has done more in mission work than Brother Rice. And there's no one who has done more in mission work than Brother Rice.
Now, that was Curtis Cates, and I bumped up the audio to the best of my ability. That was Curtis Cates telling everybody nobody has done more for world missions than Ira Rice. Ira Rice said we can evangelize the world. Ira Rice was doing world missions out in the Orient, and then he kept his paper, Contending for the Faith, alive, and he just documented how liberalism was invading the Brotherhood. 1970s to the 90s, Ira Rice had the paper, Contending for the Faith. And then you got folk knocking him. And they all knock each other. When we were in school, you know, Wesley was always digging at Memphis, but then when Wesley kicked me out, he got back in bed with Memphis. And, you know, whatever, I wouldn't say anything about it, just the whole scene about Barry Grider fellowshipping his adulterous dad. And now they're all up in bed with Bear Valley because David Jones is bringing Wayne Jones, and, you know, they're all up in with Bear Valley now. And Drew just went to speak on Focal Point with Dan Winkler. And then Wesley says the problem with Ira Rice is that he can't stick to a lectureship topic. Y'all act like lectureship topics are these unbreakable handcuffs. When I ask folk who go to lectureships, hey, did you rebuke? You know, 2015 Faulkner lectures, they had Jerry Rushford, Jim McGuigan, and F. LaGard Smith. I talked to Chuck Webster on the phone. I said, Chuck, F. LaGard Smith sitting in the audience. Did you say anything about it? Chuck Webster hung the phone up. I had a topic. My hands are tied. My hands are tied at the topic. At the lectureship. Now, I'm about to have some heavy conversation. You say, well, I thought all this was heavy. It's about to get really heavy. Y'all, action is what separates us from Don Blackwell. Don Blackwell is not making good moves. Don Blackwell is involved in these backroom meetings, and he doesn't make any type of sound or alarm. And not only is Don Blackwell not saying anything about the Brotherhood error, and, Aaron Gallagher was scheduled just to go over to East Tennessee and fellowship with Jeff Jenkins. Someone says, well, maybe he didn't go. It'd be news to me because it was publicly broadcasted that he was going. And if he decided not and he just quietly slithered away, then that's usually the MO. Someone says, I don't like that you use that phrase, slithered away. What else can I say of consistent shadow movements and backroom meetings? That's all this is puppeteering. BC Goodpasture puppeteering out here. But it's not just that. Don Blackwell is saying things that are just openly incorrect, and I'm going to correct them.
A Facebook page. We need to digitally record and store and distribute our material. We need to support works like GBN and Apologetics Press, and I could go on with the list, World Video Bible School. I'll get in trouble if I start that, but we need to have things such as Twitter, which incidentally 2 weeks ago, Twitter shut down GBN's account. We don't know why. We think it's because we posted something about homosexuality, then our account was locked. We need to have things such as Instagram. We're building a new app at GBN that we're going to release soon. We're going to call it the Salvation app. It's going to have several sections. The first one is going to be very simple. We're going to have videos that teach the gospel plan of salvation, about 3 of them, very simple. Secondly, we're going to have printed material where you can print off these Bible materials. We might be using the Back to the Bible material that Rob Whitaker uses. Third, it answers difficult questions such as what about the thief on the cross and all the things people bring up. And then fourthly, we're going to have a section where you can get in touch with a real live person at GBN so that we can study with you. We're going to keep it simple. Why? Because that's how we're going to reach people. We've got to change with things like this. We've got to reevaluate our methods. It is unlikely the days of tent meetings and door knockings are going to work like they once did. You know, every time I say that, somebody says,
We have to change our method. Because tent meetings and door knocking don't work anymore.
Can behave. People will go where there are ministries that are meaningful to the time and place. A lot of us are still doing ministry in a way that was done 20 years ago, and the culture has so changed that nothing works anymore. I don't know about gospel meetings. We've stopped doing so-called gospel meetings for the most part in my part of the country. It's not really that anybody had thought through why we ought to stop them. They just discovered it wasn't working, but if we'd thought about it, we'd have understood. The gospel meeting, the 2-week meeting, 1-week meeting held back in, say, July or whatever, that arose in my part of the country because the crops were laid. That's time to pitch a tent and get everybody out in the community and hear gospel preaching. Now that was a smart move.
It took 32 years for Don Blackwell to catch up with Rubel Shelley. Rubel was telling everybody in 1992 to stop having 2-week meetings. Now, he didn't say stop. He said, we have stopped because in Nashville they don't work. But, I mean, he's like, where was he? He is at Columbia Christian College, and he's telling them, hey, 2-week meetings don't work anymore. Well, here's Don Blackwell telling this congregation that tent meetings and door knocking doesn't work. Now, I'm going to have it in the slide. I don't know where it is on my order, but this is what the first thing I would say. How about you tell John Shannon to his face that tent meetings don't work? Now, I'm going to go back because there's more, okay? This is where we are. Don Blackwell said door knocking and tent meetings don't work. And essentially what it comes down to is he tells you everything that GBN is doing. GBN has an Instagram account. GBN has a Twitter account that just got locked out. And GBN has this and that. And it's not just GBN, it's house to house, heart to heart. So what it boils down to is what they're saying is local work doesn't work anymore. Let us do all the teaching for you. Let us write all the material for you. You buy it from us and then mail it out. Y'all know this book? This is the old Otis Gatewood book called You Can Do Personal Work. And here's what Don Blackwell's doing. He's Xing out the you and he's Xing out the personal. What can a local congregation do then? It sounds like we're funneling everything over to GBN. Your tent meetings don't work. Now let me go back to Rubel. Rubel said, week-long meetings, 2-week-long meetings. He said, in 1992, we've stopped that. Wait a minute. These folk hadn't had a 2-week meeting probably since Rubel Shelley has. I'd say it again, 3-day meetings stink. You cannot get people to rearrange their schedule for a meeting that's going to be done by the time they free themselves up to go. You're asking people to do what? Take time off? Miss a shift? You're asking them to cancel their kids' plans? I think travel sports and organized sports are a waste of a child's time, but that's what you're asking them to do is to reorganize the child's massive schedule. This is what separates. He says all roads just lead to GBN. He's going around telling local congregations tent meetings don't work and door knocking don't work. Well, then what can they do? Well, you can just fund GBN and we'll do everything for y'all for the rest of your life. Now, did you hear what he said? Listen to this.
We need to have a Facebook page. We need to digitally record and store and distribute our material. We need to support works like GBN and Apologetics Press, and I could go on with the list, World Video Bible School. I'll get in trouble if I start that, but we need to have things such as Twitter, which incidentally 2 weeks ago, Twitter duality, then our account was locked. We need to have things such as Instagram. We're building a new app at GBN that we're going to release soon. We're going to call it the Salvation app. It's going to have several sections. The first one is going to be very simple. We're going to have videos that teach the gospel plan of salvation, about 3 of them, very simple. Secondly, we're going to have printed material where you can print off these Bible materials. We might be using the Back to the Bible material that Rob Whitaker uses. Thirdly, we're going to...
Who? He's going to piggyback off of Rob Whitaker material while telling everybody that door knocking doesn't work. Rob Whitaker is at least trying to get y'all back on door knocking, but while Rob Whitaker is trying to get you back on door knocking, Don Blackwell is telling everybody door knocking doesn't work. Here's the difference between what we're doing and what Don Blackwell is saying. Don is taking all local action away from the people, and he is siphoning it over to Memphis. What I'm telling young guys is that in their local community, they can get debates. Before I got to sit down with Alan Hires, it's coming. Before I got to sit down with Alan Hires, my dad sat down with a get well elder named Dewey Murray. And Dewey Murray said about a young Rubel Shelley when he worked at Get Well, he said Rubel Shelley could have had a debate every single week if the elders had not held him back. And that is what has been killing the church for decades, is ungodly elders stifling a young man. And here comes Don Blackwell telling people that local work doesn't work anymore. You say what you want. Don didn't say it. You say what you want to. Everything in his talk is about coming money to GBN. We're building an app. We're doing this. We're doing that. Let me talk to you about this. You know I do evangelism. Do you know what this is? Not only did it take 32 years for Don to catch up to Rubel, but all he's doing is piggybacking off of Jehovah's Witnesses. I invite Jehovah's Witnesses to come to my house, and you know what they do? Like I'm an idiot. Jehovah's Witnesses pull out an iPad, and they want me to sit there with them and watch a 5-minute JW video. The video is going to teach me JW doctrine while these guys just sit on my couch. And I tell them, look, I don't want to watch that video. I want to talk to you. You came into my house, and you're going to have me watch a 5-minute video like I ain't got a brain? That's what Don wants to do. Taking the personal out of personal work. I'm telling young guys they can get debates, but you better be ready. The elders are going to try to squash you. Because Sister Sue, who works at the bank, is going to have people come through the drive-thru and say, how about y'all get that little preacher to tone it down? I ain't y'all's little preacher, and I don't work for none of y'all. Young guys, you don't work for these people. You work for God. And 2 Chronicles 25:9, God is able to provide and then some. Don't let these people drown you out. That's exactly what he's doing. Tent meetings, they work. Get on local television. Local television is still available. Write in the newspaper. Knock doors with the material you wrote yourself. Y'all, we ought to be ashamed that at a national level, y'all don't have a single person in a congregation that can write your own material. I am in the newspaper every single week, and I write our weekly door knocking material. Y'all don't have anybody. This is the moment, y'all, where it is incomprehensible to me that you all inside of your building say that everybody except you is going to hell. But then in the same service you say, there's not a soul in here who can write evangelistic material. We need y'all to do all the work for us. I don't know how you don't think you're going to be seeing all these people in hell. Debates, tent meetings, television, the paper. Write your own material for door knocking. That's the difference. These guys want you to be wedded to their ministry for life. I want you to follow New Testament pattern and do local work yourself. This is Herald of Truth all over again. Herald of Truth was a nationally broadcasted program. That's John Allen Chalk, Batzel Barrett Baxter. And everybody says, oh, thank God. Thank God that we get to have national relevance through Herald of Truth. Yeah, until Herald of Truth gets into charismatic tongue speaking. Why are you so fixated on national relevance instead of thinking local souls need the truth? You know, my dad didn't start out what he's doing to be famous. But Y'all talk about national relevance. When I'm down in Arkansas and I preach for the first time, people meet me in the back and they shake my hand and say, I've been watching Johnny Robertson for years. When I went to Jamaica on essentially what's a glorified holiday, I didn't know it was going to be that, but it was. I was recognized by people over there. I'm not tooting my horn. We're just local evangelists. We're local evangelists who take advantage of local television, and we challenge the sects, the debates, the controversy. It gets people in their book. Someone says it makes them angry. Yeah, they get angry and they study their Bible. Who cares? They're going to get unangry when they learn that they're lost and they want the truth. GBN is where I said, would you please study some history and see that they are just recycling Herald of Truth? And you'll say, well, GBN is sound. GBN has zero defense against internal error. Why is GBN not talking about Phil Sanders? Why is Phil Sanders goes to Sunset and preaches? Phil Sanders' preacher goes to Pepperdine. Randy Roper. Why are they not saying anything? Dan Winkler went to preach on Sunset. My dad showed y'all the class where Dan Winkler's on the fence about instrumental music. Why is Don Blackwell not saying anything about Dan Winkler, Phil Sanders? Why is Don Blackwell not saying anything about Jeff Jenkins, who just fellowshipped with Orpheus Hayward, who says flat out you can have a piano if you want to, and he calls all these denominational people brethren? They're herald of truth all over again. What they're doing is they're salving your denominational feelings. You view the Church of Christ as your club, and these guys promote your club. Listen, if you are not willing, if you are going to eviscerate these outsiders, but you will not speak the truth to the people on the inside, you are a partyist. That is party thinking. That is not New Testament apostolic doctrine at all. Look, if there's one thing that I'm accustomed to, it's losing friends. You have nothing else to do, okay? You have nothing else to do. You could at least look at old papers like I do. And I'm telling you, I got plenty to do. Do y'all just not think that this stuff, y'all put all y'all's eggs into one basket? I'm not asking you to put your eggs in my basket. I'm asking you to do local work. Have a good, sound eldership that works with an evangelist. Don't have these elders who don't teach. Teaching elders who work alongside of a local evangelist with local members who are evangelistically minded. Get some local fervor going. But what y'all do is you put all your eggs in one basket called GBN. And this is what can happen. Gospel Advocate, March 22nd, 1979, tragedy in Texas. Eldred Stevens, director of the Preston Road School of Preaching, and all three teachers, Rudel White, Tom Dockery, and Ray Evans, were killed in a tragic plane crash near Redbird Airport. The men had been attending lectures at Abilene University and were flying back to Dallas in dense fog. Stevens was piloting the plane. Stevens, 57, had been director of the Preston Road School since in 1965. White had been with the school as a teacher since 76. Dockery and Evans joined the faculty in 1978. Y'all, a school of preaching died in a plane crash. You say, what does that... Look, you're putting all your eggs into one basket. You allow one collection of people to do all your teaching, all of your work for you. What happens when they die? When all your thinkers and all your teachers die simultaneously. When I do this class, what I'm trying to do is give you the tools to how to do this work. I don't want people watching this broadcast because they say, boy, I love looking at Caleb every Wednesday. Thank you. That's not what this class is about. I want you to have the tools. I want to help people understand thinking patterns. I don't want to just tell you what to think. I want you to learn to do Bible study for yourself so that you're not beholden to anybody. Action. We need action.
that answers different. Fourthly, we're going to have a section, we're going to keep it simple. Yes, we've got to reevaluate our methods. It is unlikely the days of tent meetings and door knockings are going to work like they once did. You know,
if there's one thing, look, let me do this because I don't want to get ahead of myself. When I talked about Preston Road School of Preaching, do you know, this is the Encyclopedia of the Stone Camel Movement. Do you know that the schools of preaching were created out of distrust of the Bible colleges? Eschewing accreditation and basic standards of admission beyond maturity, or in some cases marital status, the schools of preaching were born in an era of growing distrust of the Christian colleges' Bible departments. Now, if the schools of preaching can be birthed out of distrust over the Bible colleges, what's wrong with me then in turn saying, I don't trust the schools of preaching anymore? Someone said that the Bible colleges were overloaded with Harvard specialists tainted with sectarian philosophy who speak in intellectual nothingness or just plain denominational terms. Glenn Wallace said that, Foy's cousin. The Harvard specialists eventually answered back, admitting that the schools of preaching were providing more preachers than the colleges and universities. Two professors criticized the school for their adverse effect on the educational level of church pulpits and abandonment of critical tools for understanding Scripture. Everett Ferguson of Abilene Christian worried, what happens to a generation reared on techniques and assuming the biblical message without a real knowledge of what it is? The tenuous relationship between Christian colleges and schools of preaching has improved in recent years, and some schools have encouraged arrangements with the colleges to accept credits for their coursework. So what started out as distrust turned into mutual benefit. Here's your mutual benefit. Here's Will Heinstein, the director of Southeast Institute of Biblical Studies, Southeast at Knoxville, that just brought in Jeff Jenkins after he fellowshipped with Orpheus Hayward. And look what he's doing. He's sitting down with Faulkner. And what are they doing? We have exciting news to announce, Southeast says. This week, Will Heinstein and Mitch Henry, president of Faulkner University, signed an agreement recognizing Southeast's bachelor's degree. This allows Southeast graduates to enter directly into the graduate program at Faulkner without any further leveling work. This is a tremendous opportunity for our alumni and a great step forward for our program. That's fellowship. Faulkner will bring in Pepperdine speakers just like Freed Harden will. Like I said, in 2015, they had F. LaGard Smith, Jim McGuigan, and Jerry Rushford all on one program. And do you know who I talked to about it? Caleb, do you ever talk to any of these people directly? I talked on the phone with David Hester, and I asked David Hester, why did you not say anything about F. LaGard Smith, Jerry Rushford, and Jim McGuigan on the 2015 Faulkner lectureship? And David Hester said to me, I'm just the co-director of the lectureship. I don't have that type of clout. The first 6 chapters of Daniel. Put your career on the line and say it from the pulpit. That's all these people are. They're career opportunists. They are not local evangelists. They don't know about evangelism. They have no clue what they're talking about. They're businessmen. They're pencil pushers. And can I tell you what the colleges think about your preaching schools? This man's name is Darrell Clark. He's an Abilene grad, and he's promoting Leonard Allen. Leonard Allen, the head of the Bible department at Lipscomb University, has done churches a great service by reminding us of the great tradition in our Christian Orthodox roots. He discusses many aspects of the ancient faith. In his discussion, he contrasts the Stone Campbell movement of the 19th century. There he discussed how churches were negatively influenced towards a modernist Christian semi-deistic approach to God and the Holy Spirit. In the 20th century, Foy Wallace and Guy Woods continued to propagate this view. Presently, most all colleges and seminaries attached to the Stone Campbell movement reject this unorthodox teaching. Only a few sectarian, unaccredited, church-centered preaching schools with unqualified teachers still promote it. The semi-deistic teachings of Foy Wallace and Guy Woods. Church leaders should avoid hiring their poorly trained graduates. Teachers and church leaders will find Allen's thoughtful book a call for restoration and renewal. That's what the Abilene crowd thinks about your school of preaching. And the funny thing is Keith Mosier was educated at Harding Graduate, so right back at you, you know. That's what I'm saying. All these people who treat it like a club, they don't even like each other. That's all this is business. Where's Don Blackwell? Where's Aaron Gallagher? Where's anybody at the Memphis School of Preaching? Where's the Texas School of Preaching? Where's Jason Rollo? Where's Terrence Dendy? Make it plain on this, y'all. They are absolutely in bed. The schools of preaching were founded because the schools of preaching couldn't get a conservative voice into the college lectureships, and now y'all are back in bed with the colleges. History repeats itself. This is absolutely the 1800s of J.W. McGarvey and Hall Lowry Calhoun done over. We're redoing it. Door knocking and tent meetings don't work, says Don Blackwell. And I say again, how about you tell that to John Shannon's face? If there's anything that I'm accustomed to, it's losing friends. I know exactly what I'm about to say, and I know exactly what a handful of y'all are going to do with it. I am not going to sit by and listen to Don Blackwell tell the Brotherhood that door knocking doesn't work and tent meetings don't work. A tent meeting put on by Don Blackwell would not work the way that Don Blackwell does meetings. This is out of the Christian Chronicle. Minister seriously injured in an ATV accident. The accident happened in Salem, Virginia. Don was holding a gospel meeting in the area. The couple had gone out for a ride on a four-wheeler when the accident happened. This is Don, and he's going to tell you about his four-wheeler accident.
About in the past, but I have learned a lot more. On May the 5th of this year, I started a gospel meeting in Salem, Virginia, at the West Side congregation where Brother Eddie Gilpin preaches. The very next day, on Monday, May the 6th, Eddie and Jeannie invited us over to their house for lunch. They told us we were going to be going to a little cafe nearby their house, and we were very interested. We were expecting a restaurant, and so they took us outside, and we got on the four-wheelers to head to this cafe, and we were surprised because they took us out to a little shady area under the trees, very beautiful, and we sat and we ate together. You can see a picture of us here sitting there eating, and it was just a wonderful lunch that they had prepared. You could not have asked for a better day. Afterwards, we took a tour of the property on the four-wheelers. Eddie and Jeannie were on one four-wheeler ahead of us, and Sherry and I were on the second one following them. And as we were riding through the hayfield, this is where I go blank, apparently we hit something. And they say that my four-wheeler flipped several times. Sherry flew in one direction, and I flew off in the other direction. When I hit the ground, I broke my back, and I severed my spinal cord. When Eddie got to me, I was unconscious. And in fact, he went to this one, a little half couch, made the Eddie Gilpin preaches. The very next day, on Monday, May the 6th,
Don Blackwell told everybody at PTP that he began a meeting on May 5th. And on the first day of his meeting, what's he out doing? Right at lunchtime now. He's in the daytime of a gospel meeting. What's he doing? He's riding four-wheelers with Eddie Gilpin. That's how Don Blackwell does a meeting. It's not even like Don can say, hey, we finished the meeting. It's not like he can say, we finished the meeting, and then like afterwards, the meeting's done, we go out and we ride four-wheelers. I can only operate on what he told. He said, on May 5th, I began a meeting with Eddie Gilpin, and on May 6th, we went riding four-wheelers. So when Don Blackwell goes out and he holds a meeting, what does he do on day one of this gospel meeting? He goes and he rides four-wheelers. Don Blackwell playing around. And nobody playing around during a gospel meeting is going to tell me that 2-week tent meetings don't work. He doesn't know how to do a meeting. We do not play during our tent meetings. I'm going to start with Holger Neubauer in 2012. I think it was 2012. I have known Holger my whole life. And in 2012, he preached in the tent meeting. And Holger, 2-week tent meeting, door knocking every morning. Holger drove his Prius from Michigan down to Virginia. And at some point, very quickly, we're all getting ready to go out door knocking, and Holger reaches for something out the back of his Prius, and in the back seat of his Prius, he brought his bag of golf clubs. Whole full golf set in the back seat, and he says to my dad, he said, I brought these just in case, just in case. And my dad said, Holger, I do not have time to go golfing with you. Don Blackwell started the meeting on May 5th, and he went riding four-wheelers on May 6th. John Shannon, 2010, he came to do a tent meeting. John Shannon will tell you, when Virginia's doing a tent meeting, they don't play. It's door knocking every day. It's trying to get Bible studies. It's bringing people to the tent at night, and then it's repeat the next day. 2 weeks. Johnny Robertson hosted a 2-week tent meeting in Bassett, Virginia, and when the night of the first meeting was ended, they took the tent down and re-erected it in Danville in the dark and did a 4-week-long tent meeting. And a Methodist preacher was baptized. Don Blackwell said, tent meetings don't work anymore. I know John Shannon likes to go fishing. John Shannon doesn't go fishing when he's doing a tent meeting in Virginia. And he doesn't want to. And we ain't got time for that. Holger Neubauer does not go golfing when he's doing a tent meeting, was doing a tent meeting in 2012 in Virginia. Brant Stubblefield, 2009. He probably came up before 2009. Brant will tell you, these folk ain't playing during a 2-week tent meeting. Brant, let me go back over here. Well, I'll go to John in a minute. Brant was preaching. He's at this meeting. And Brant saw a lost woman come in with some male friend of hers and her sister and saw the woman challenge Johnny Robertson with a microphone. Brant went back home to Oklahoma and he started conducting tent meetings himself. How about Don tell Brant that tent meetings don't work? John Shannon, preaching under the tent, has had men, multiple times, has had men come to the microphone and challenge him. It's local activity. It's local flavor. You don't need a national entity to do all your work for you. You need local controversy or you will die and wither away on the vine. We're not playing. No, I'm not going to let Don Blackwell tell these people that door knocking and gospel meetings don't work just because he doesn't know how to do a gospel meeting. 3-4-day meetings are not going to cut it, and when you get someone like Don Blackwell to come do your meeting, he's just going to go ride four-wheelers. It's not just Don. I told you, Holger wanted to go golfing. You don't know a man named Mark Bass? Mark Bass used to preach up in Ohio. Mark Bass used to ride me all the time about taking him hog hunting. All Mark Bass wanted to do, go hog hunting. Why can't you just work, man? We're going to go shoot some pheasants. We're going to go shoot this. I'm going over here. We're just going to do this and sit in a deer stand for hours, and then we're going to go preach a sorry sermon at night. Your preaching's not good, and you don't do any work during your meeting. The only reason Don was over there doing a meeting for Eddie Gilpin was to salve the relationship, to keep money flowing from West Side to GBN. It's a business. It certainly ain't local work. This is where a moment where someone says, Caleb, you're crossing a line. No, I'm not. This is straight out of the Bible, Isaiah 38:1. In those days, Hezekiah was sick unto death, and Isaiah the prophet, the son of Amoz, came out unto him and said unto him, Thus saith the Lord, set your house in order. Isaiah went to see a dying man and said, you need to repent. I have no problem with this. I wish that Don Blackwell wasn't in a wheelchair for himself, for his wife, for his kids. I wish he wasn't in a wheelchair. But let's not act like he got in that chair by being martyred out in some horrible inner city streets passing the gospel out. on day one of a 3-4 day meeting, he was riding four-wheelers. And he has the audacity to come out and tell you, the local meetings don't work. He just doesn't know how to do a local meeting is his problem. It's Isaiah 38:1. What do you want me to do? I have no problem telling you this because we are men of action. I go and I interview Steve Wolfgang because I want to help the young guys spot the politics. Did y'all hear Alan Hires taken up for his buddy? Alan Hires just eviscerates Rubel Shelley in 1985 only to turn around and defend Bruce McClarty. Bruce McClarty's a sound man. That's odd because Bruce McClarty is literally in places where Rubel Shelley is, and Bruce McClarty is sharing the pulpit with women preachers and he doesn't rebuke them. Alan Hires is playing Brotherhood politics in his old age. He's doing it before his old age, but he's doing it right now. Don Blackwell and Aaron Gallagher, they're doing the exact same thing. I showed you. Will Heinstein's in bed with everybody. When we tried to ask Will Heinstein about FHU nude art, he said no comment. These guys are in bed with everybody for the dollar. I'm interviewing Steve Wolfgang on my own dollar. Because I care about your sons who you don't care about. If you cared about your sons, you would start introducing them to local work and get them away from this toxic political scene. We leave Steve Wolfgang on April 19th, and my dad left me in the Chicago airport. My dad left me in the Chicago airport, and he flew to Houston. And from Houston, he went over to like the Georgia area. I don't even know. But the result was, after leaving me on April 19th in the Chicago airport, he baptizes our brother Larry, who is now a brother, on April 26th, and he baptized him at around midnight. From April 19th, action. April 26th, action. Look at that little boy. That's my little boy Everett. And Everett is out knocking doors Sunday after Bible class, April 28th. I can say this because we're men of action. I can say this because I love your sons more than you do. I'll take a moment with you. I have told people to their face, not trying to be ugly, but that's my boy. When I hear these people say, oh, little preacher, how about you get your boy to be a preacher and take the blows instead of trying to induce mine? Why don't y'all raise y'all's kids up to do something? I one time said, I wasn't married, but I one time said, I don't know if I want to have kids. I don't know what to do with myself. I one time said, I don't know if I want to have kids. And a woman said to me, well, you ought to. And I said, why? And she said, because they need to grow up and help the church. How about you get your grandkids to grow up and do something? We took him door knocking, and you know what? The folk love it. I'm inviting him to Bible class. A woman told me on the doorstep, it ain't ugly. The woman on the doorstep told me, I attend the Pentecostal church down the road. She said, my husband died last year in August of cancer. And I said, ma'am, my first thought on that, I said, I'm sorry. I said, my first thought on that is why? Why did they not heal your husband? And she said, I've already thought of that. And she's shaking Everett's hand. A lot of y'all sons grow up, and their memories, look, my thing about little preacher, I don't know what he's going to do. My idea is to train him up, raise him up to love God and know that God loves him. And I'm talking real deal. God loves him. And I'm not talking about this lip service that y'all got going on. God loves me. And I'm going to teach him that, and I'm going to teach him to serve people. I don't know that that's going to manifest itself the way that you think it's going to. But while y'all raise up y'all's kids saying, oh, when I was a kid, we were going to such and such lectureship, and I was meeting the giants of the Brotherhood. That boy is going to grow up and say, my daddy took me door knocking. That's the difference between me and you. That's the difference between y'all's dad and my dad. My dad had me going in to record at a Baptist church when I was 14 years old, and when they ripped the camera out of my hands, Holger Neubauer said, "Johnny, you shouldn't have had your 14-year-old son in there doing XYZ." Holger Neubauer doesn't get to tell anybody what to do with their boys. You're not going to coach us while you don't do what we do. You take your boy door knocking? Door knocking's dangerous. Do you know that where we were, right around the corner, was a high-speed chase? We're out knocking doors, and while we're knocking, we're hearing sirens going off, and we're hearing all the, and then the boom and the bang because someone just wrecked their car and off the curb into somebody's front yard. The world is dangerous. Well, that didn't have nothing to do with me. That's just stuff happening over there. We're knocking doors. He's okay. We're putting him back. We're done with the street. We're putting him back in the car, and all these people, "Hey, cutie." You know, when I was a kid and my dad would take me places to Bible studies and to visit, my dad would tell me, "You're good medicine for these people." He said, "You're good medicine for them." He's good medicine. And I think y'all's kids would be good medicine, and you don't give them the opportunity. What's my introduction note to the book of Daniel? God did not give us the book of Daniel so that we could wrangle over the prophecies, but that we might see great faith and recreate it. Hebrews 11:38 to 12:1 says, "Of whom the world was not worthy, these all having obtained a good report through faith, we also are compassed about with a great cloud of witness." God put the book of Daniel in the Bible so that you could study Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego and get your boys ready to be men of action and character. Jeremiah is told not to marry. Jeremiah 16. Ezekiel's wife dies while he's on his mission. Ezekiel 24. And Daniel is made a eunuch. Daniel 1:3. And you know what? These guys just kept working. Nothing stopped them. Why? Did Jeremiah, Ezekiel, and Daniel do all their hard work, hoping that one day someone would write their name in the Encyclopedia of the Stone Campbell Movement? No. Jeremiah, Ezekiel, and Daniel did what they did because they loved God and they loved their neighbors. When I come back next week, I'm going to show you Daniel loved Nebuchadnezzar. Obviously, I'm going to teach on Daniel's visions and John's revelation, but I am not going to just waste the book of Daniel to fixate y'all's itch for end-time arguments. This is my quote. People get so wrapped up in end times, they forget about the meantime. 276-806-3641, calebgrobertson@gmail.com. Get on the informer list. Let your friends know about what does the Bible say on YouTube. Everybody I talked about, I love them. Got no animosity. Don't even give me that. But like I said, it's Isaiah 38:1. Okay, we gotta have some conversation here. I'm not going to just stand by and let local work be diminished. These local folk need local Christians. God loves them. Do you? Keep asking, what does the Bible say?